a lot of our clients are really moving forward, right? They're really becoming companies, not just these self-employed people who are really awesome at a particular skill. And a lot of them are now, because they have such a great pool of clients and they have a great staff and they have a great process, they're now like, all right, how do we do more? And a lot of it has come down to branding and marketing and social media and advertising and all these things. People are looking like, how do I get myself out there more? Because they've proven to themselves that they're an authority. And it's made me start exploring other companies and what they're doing. And I showed you that one I came across with that golf company.
Yeah, with making the reels that are really like
Yeah,
films.
well, they
It's
said,
pretty cool.
they in the video, in the caption, they said, "Here's a point of view of a brand that makes films, not ads."
Right.
And it was cool.
Yep,
It, like,
not
inspired
ads,
me. It's like, how
advertising.
many of our companies
Yeah.
that we coach could really change their marketing to be like, "Here's a film about who we are and what we do and how we do it and people we help and why we help these specific people," instead of like, social media, "Here's the 3 best ways to do whatever," or, like, "Hey, here's why you should work with us, buy my shit." And it was an interesting way to do it, and I think the majority of our clients have entered that phase where they have become really at the top of the heap in their industry. Almost every one of them.
Well, I think a lot of it too is like we're seeing a lot of them, like you said, they are finally believing in what they are becoming as a company. And the mark of the leadership and the mark of a really good leader is just how good of a storyteller are you, right? And what better way to storytell than to shoot a film, not shoot an ad, right? And I think that's kind of like the evolution that we're starting to see. I think people are starting to see their stories and they are starting to believe, "Holy cow, I am this," and, it's really it's been really great to see, especially with one of our clients who we've been working with the longest at this point, and he is now he's made his first million in revenue, and he's gotten to that point, and, he's put together a whole business and a whole company, and it's like, "Wow, I am as good as I knew I could be." And now, people need validation and proof before they can believe. And, sometimes you got to believe without the
Man, you
validation
said
and
the
the
word "believe" a
proof.
lot. I
Sorry, man. Sorry. I was
know you're
just,
trying
I'm
to
just stuck
emphasize it,
on,
but we
stuck
got
on
it.
it.
It's well, yeah, look, if when you're trying to, everybody does fake it till you make it. And that's not what we mean. When we're really trying to help people out to embrace their identity. What it really is, it's not like this, "Oh, I'm the best at what I do," and no, it's you're committed to what you're working to, and that's what I think a lot of people miss is they skip ahead to, like, I don't know, let's just make something up. I wanna be the best, doctor, right? Okay. So someone's like, "Oh, I'm a," the belief, the fake it till I make it, I'm a really, sought after surgeon," and they wanna believe that thing, and it's like, well, you're not. You're not yet. Like, you're building towards that, and you're doing all the things that are necessary, and you're putting yourself in those situations, and I think in order to identify who you are, so you can use that to start making your behaviors useful, right? So you can become the thing you really wanna be. The identity, the belief that you have to have is that you're working towards that I'm really working towards that. It's not like, "Oh, I'm not good enough to do that yet," or no, 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 of course you're not. Of course. If you're working towards it, like you're working towards doing that thing, that's where your behaviors will start to come in and say, all right, well, person who is trying to become that thing does these behaviors. And if you do those behaviors over and over and over and over again, you are going to become that ultimate end result.
Right. It's really the capability that you have. It's believing that you're capable of doing that thing and becoming that thing. And, when capability takes means that you have to gain a skill or gain an ability to live out that what you're fully capable of, right? You have to work on the thing that makes you capable of it so that you can become it. Like you can't. like baseball. I'll go back to baseball. Like Andrew had certain skills that my son, which allowed him to be good at baseball, but he was capable as a young kid, but he's only gotten better because he's worked on those natural skills that have allowed him to be very
Right.
capable of
But
doing it.
that's the thing, like, New Year's is just passed, and people are trying to go to the gym and get better, and you can't just be like, "Oh, I'm the type of person who is in great shape." No, you can be like, "I'm the type of person who goes to the gym every day." Right? That's the thing you have to embrace when you're growing, right? It's like, I'm the type of person that does this. It's like when someone is quitting smoking. "Oh, I'm quitting smoking. I'm quitting smoking." You can't say that. You gotta just say, "I don't smoke." Right? I don't smoke, right? So it's delicate in what you're doing in that, and that's what a lot of our clients have had this ability to do, obviously through our coaching and through their hard ass work, and fighting the urge to go backwards all the time, and understanding that they're ready to go forward. But that ability to just know, here's what I'm doing. That focus to say, all right, here's exactly what I'm doing, and I know I'm so certain in why I'm doing these things. That allows for behavior to become not like easy, but very, very simple, in the manner of, okay, I know why I'm doing this. I know what I have to do. The only thing left is to do it. And the funny thing is, the more and more they do it, the more they become that person that they've always dreamt they could be, or they build that company to the point that they always dreamed of in their mind's eye. And they're like, and now many of them, it's like, holy shit, this is a reality. That one you talked about, it's taken him 4 years. We've had others do it in months. And it's like, in a matter of months, it's like, holy shit, I really am this thing. And they're doing it and they're living it. It's almost like a dream. Like, they can't believe it. Like, wait a minute, is this real? But the ones who, at the end of the year, we met with and did their year-end reviews and everything else, they're just so prideful, and they're like, "Okay, well, now what's next?" And luckily for us and for them, they've retained us for another year. And it's like, okay, now you and I get to work with more and more of our clients on the next phase, that next iteration, that next, how do I really become the CEO, not just how do I build this foundation of an incredible business. It's been it's been an amazing journey to watch some of these people really come into their own, and all different ranges, young kids up to, people in their 50s, where they're really looking at themselves and like, damn, I am exactly who I always thought I would be one day, but I am it. Like, they look in the mirror and they're like, I am it right now.
Well, and I think a lot of times what stops a lot of people from that is they don't have the support system around them that gives them that opportunity to really achieve it. And, for a lot of our clients, it's interesting, we've been, we do in our simple life, we talk about gratitude. And we were talking with a couple of clients, and we weren't even doing the simple life piece, but they were like, I'm just so grateful for you guys. We heard that several times over the last couple of days. And it really stood out to me, like, holy cow, like, it took they did all the work. We were there to be that support that they don't ordinarily have, that only allowed them to believe more in themselves. And one person even said, "You guys see me." You see me, and that is something that is so important. Like, yes, you can believe it in yourself, but some people just need that extra little point to feel like, all right, somebody else sees my potential. They see what I can be. And every single person that you and I have seen, literally seen, has been successful in executing and getting to where they want to be at this
Well, it's a
point.
lot to them too. They allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to put all their cards on the table, knowing that, what we're going to discover might hurt. It might be a difficult thing to, come to terms with and say, damn, that's the situation I put myself in. That's the way I'm acting. That's the way I'm thinking. That's the way I'm delivering things. And, the more they are open-minded, not to being criticized, but to seeing the reality of their situation through someone else's eyes, that gives them the ability to then make the changes necessary to grow to the places they want to do the things they've always said they were going to, but didn't know how.
Yeah, well, you can't embrace growth if you're not gonna be vulnerable and be willing to look at all that and hear the hard
Well, but
truth,
it's
and
but it's hard. So the thing is, it's really hard to be vulnerable because when someone is self-employed or they're starting a business, they have to show up as a professional. Like, hey, you're about to pay me your hard-earned money to do this thing. You better know that I know what I'm doing. And a lot of the times, they don't know everything they're doing. They might have a specific skill set they're excellent at, but the rest of it, they're kind of building the plane as they fly it. So they have to show up that way constantly with this confidence that, like, no, I got your back. You pay me. I'm going to get the job done and everything. So that becomes their suit of armor everywhere they go in networking meetings and relationships. And that's the problem, is they don't have the outlet. And even that comes home with, with their husbands or wives. And it's like they're guarded all the time and they have this front, this facade that they have to put on to protect the revenue generation and the stability of the company. But it's like, well, where do I go to do that? And that is a lot of what coaching has become, is people are like, they can put things down. They're like, oh, whew, they can breathe for a minute and like, okay, I could tell you guys how it really is. And not that they're lying outside, but they feel uncomfortable presenting their truths to their clients or their spouses or the people that rely on them.
yeah, and we provide that safe place for them to be able to do that, and that's what's and again, it goes back to the more that you're able to open up and be vulnerable, the f not the necessarily just faster, but the better the process is to achieving and becoming who you desire to
Yeah,
become,
that's exactly
and
right. It's
that's
the
the beauty of
quality
it.
of it, right? And the depth of it. It's the
Yes.
quality and depth. Speed is different for everybody, you know? We've had
Mhm.
people in matter of months change everything. And as we said earlier, we've had people since day one, since like 2022. Shit, it has been 4 years, Tom, since 2022 that have worked with us that are just kind of getting to the precipice of their potential. And but they've done it. Everyone has their own speed. They've done it at their speed. And we've had other folks where shit, we've had to confront them this year. We've had to really say, like, you are not allowing yourself to be the person we see you could be.
Mhm.
And that was a hard, for one in particular person, I know you know who I'm talking about. That was a hard conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a necessary conversation, what are you really paying us to help you
Right.
do? Do you want us to give you everything that you wanna hear, or do you want us to give you the God's honest truth? And that's one of the things I think that really sets us apart too at times with our clients that they've never experienced before is no one's been willing to tell them like it is. No one's been willing to say, "Hey, I think this would really be better for you than doing this," or you know what, you really need to examine these quote unquote demons that you have, because if you don't, you're just going to wind up in the same place in a year from now, and then all of this is going to be for nothing. And we, as much as you and I have very two different approaches in how we coach, and it's sometimes really important for people to see that we both come to a reality with people at times saying, hey, this is not for you. This is not the way you should be running this. You're not a business owner. And we've had to tell people that too. And, people have such a derogatory way of looking at being self employed. Like, it's like if you created a job for yourself, you're self employed. If you figured out how to generate revenue for yourself by giving yourself work, you have a job. You don't have a business. And you and I came to that realization last year, and we've shared that before on here. But I think people get insulted sometimes when we say, "Well, you're just self-employed."
Yeah.
Well, why does it have such a negative
Well,
connotation,
I think
you
it's
know?
because they've when they jumped off the cliff and left corporate America or told their spouses or their family, like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna go after this. I'm gonna try it on my own." They have this vision of what it's gonna be if I own a business, right? And it's always freedom and success and money and all these things. So in order to keep that alive, they're after this thing, and it's like, "I own a business. I own a business." Most of them never really qualified what that means to them. They've taken a societal view of it and just said, "Okay, this is what it is." And there are thousands of different ways to be a business owner, okay? You can own a business. Now, what Tom and I always say is we own a company. We have a company, right? But we're self-employed, meaning like we can't sell this. We can't sell this to somebody else because we are the product, right? And many people are that way. A lot of CPAs, successful CPAs I know, it's them and someone who helps them out. They can't really sell that. Even if their clients were saying many if their clients were going to be sold off, like their book of business was going to be sold. I couldn't think of the word. It doesn't mean everybody's going to stay because I'm like, you do things a very different way. Coaching is very personal training, those types of things. It's tough. If you're selling a commodity, then yeah, you can sell the business. But that's what it means when you're self-employed is like you've created this job, you're the one doing everything. Now, some industries can pivot that and turn it into a business. And even Tom and I, we could turn this into a business. We could train two other people to coach the way we want and use our systems and processes. But at the end of the day, I think while people really appreciate our process, especially that first 30 days and the milestones we change for them in the simple focus system, people appreciate the processes and the tactics we use. But at the end of the day, it's the way that we use those frameworks to bring them to the place. So it's very difficult. I'm not saying impossible. It's very difficult to replicate that in the same way. Not saying that if we hired two people and trained them how to do this, they couldn't do it in a different way, even better than us. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
But it's in the world that we've built, we've decided, okay, we own a company and we're self-employed. Okay. Other people haven't made that determination. You just said, I'm going to build a business, and they haven't made a determination of how big, what size, what it's going to be, because it's so far away. They're like, I just want to generate revenue right now. And then every
Right.
time they generate revenue,
Right.
like, I got to spend more money to generate more revenue. And it's like this hamster wheel of. So some of them do have a business where they have employees and they have staff, but they're still self-employed, meaning they're still working for themselves. The company isn't working for them.
Correct. Correct. It's a very and I think it's where a lot of people get overwhelmed, and that creates a lot of bad habits and a lot of bad behaviors is because they don't know what they really are. If they are a business or they business owner or they self-employed and all words are so powerful. We talk about the importance of saying and speaking the right language because the language really dictates the behaviors that you follow and they come from ultimately what you believe about yourself and what you're doing and if you have that overwhelm and that lack of clarity you could really go down this whirlwind of just complete chaos and never bring any order and structure to your life. So it's really important that like so if you're listening to this and it's the beginning of 2026, by the end of the year if you don't have clarity on what you're really doing and you're wondering why your business is struggling, it's probably because you need some more direction around how to behave because because you'll know what you want to become and then you just have to figure out what you're going to behave to do to be able to become
In
that.
the behaviors,
Which
people get so disciplined in their behaviors when they're at their desk and working and doing their deliverables. What most of our clients never realized was how much of an overflow there is to how you behave in your personal life that's going to come and bleed into the business life, and vice versa. How you are in your business is going to bleed over to your personal. And that's really why we have a dual coaching approach, is to make sure that we're looking at, I hate this word, but a holistic approach to the person and the business, right? Because how you treat yourself is how you're going to treat your clients. How you treat your home is how you're going to treat your business. How you think about things with your children is how you're going to think about things with your clients. Like all these things carry over, and it's having that behavior at home and at work line up and be aligned to a way that it's you, right? Because that's what this is. It's all you. You're the one running it. And as you change, you have to change all behaviors. You have to adapt to the new phase that you're in, whether it's in your life or your business. If you go from single to married, you have to adapt how you live. Well, you're probably also going to have to adapt things in your business. And you have kids, you're going to have to adapt how you run your home and your day to day and your schedule, which means you're going to have to adapt how you do it in your business. If you're really on a health kick and you're like, oh, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing all these things, that's going to happen in your business. The thing is, did you choose the changes in the other side, or did they just kind of happen? And those behaviors, if you start to really analyze them and say, okay, I'm going to choose to do these things, you can be way more effective. Where what most people do is it just happens and they end up becoming something that they really didn't desire. Not that it's always bad, but it wasn't their intention.
Right.
It just was their result.
Well, I think that's so important with what we did and that I think one of the funnest things that we did this year was our meaningful goal process and now the business standards and personal standards and helping people to develop the standards of their behavior for 2026 in particular. But like that process of helping people to determine what the meaningful goals are for them was really such a fun thing to see because we asked two very important things in that process. We were like, okay, what is it that would make a difference for you this year? And what was it that made a difference last year? Right? And pretty much what we realized was such a strong correlation between all the things that went well for somebody last year and made a difference last year, they were bringing in some shape or form into what their what would be better for them this year. And we could create goals that actually had meaning for them. Right? When we don't have meaning behind our behaviors and what we're going to do and what we want to accomplish, we go nowhere and then we don't know how to behave, and that's why we decided to create the standards out of that. You wanna say a little bit that
Yeah, well,
about
I
that?
like what you were because when we looked at the previous year and whatever they accomplished, we asked them what made a difference last year for you in your life, in your business. And when they said that, usually the goals they had this year were building upon that. And that was the cool thing is, and that's
Correct.
what we do in life. That's what we do in business. You're constantly building on your other skill sets, your experience, your knowledge, your resources. You're building on those. And it was fun to watch that pattern of people embracing what they've built, not trying to go astray and let me rip it up and start all over again. It was really like, no, I'm gonna lean into this further. That was what was gratifying for me. But yeah, it's everybody sets their goals, right? Not everybody. Many people set goals, right? And they're like, okay, here's my goals for the next year. I'm gonna make this much money. I'm gonna look this way. I'm gonna do these things, right? Whatever they are. The problem is they just state them it's usually out of a problem, like, "I'm gonna make this much money," aspiration or problem. That's usually the bookends of why someone sets a goal. And what we really challenge people to do is what is a meaningful goal for you, right? And the way we ask them to say it, "What's a meaningful goal?" And, someone will be like, "Make to make $120,000 a month is meaningful." Okay, great. How would that make a difference in your life? How would that make a difference in your business? And the funny thing is many times when they try to answer that, it doesn't equate to $120,000. It may equate to 300,000 or it may equate to I only really needed to make 90,000 a month. And when we start to look at that, they're like, "Damn, why am I putting myself through this if it's not really going to make a difference? It's just something I plucked out of thin air. I'm going to run a marathon this year. Okay, great. Well, how does that make a difference in your life?" And sometimes, like, because I'll know that I can do that. And that's great. Okay, so that's the difference it's going to make. You have this knowledge now that you can go through that thing. And other people are like, well, I've always wanted to do it. Okay, but how would that make a difference? Well, I'd achieve something I always said I wanted to do. Okay, but why did you want to do it? And they're like, I don't really know. And then they can let it go. They can put it down. Right? And then they can start embracing things that are like, "Wow, this really would make a difference in my life." And that little that's most of what we do. We just ask very unique questions in very different ways to get down another layer and get people to give the true answer of what's in their heart and soul, not just what their intelligence said they should do next year. And that is the big differentiator of when people work with us in that aspect and they're like, "Holy shit, this is a different path than I thought I wanted, but now that I look at it this way, damn, that is really truly what I want, not just something I thought I should say."
Right. Well, and it gives people really a sense of why they're doing it. And that why is so many people lose the why, right? Where especially when we're self-employed, we go into situations where you know, I'm doing this thing, I get caught up in doing it, and then I forget why I did it. And this process of setting meaningful goals for each year, I think is going to become such an important staple of what we do with people because it reminds you of the constant why are you doing it, why this is and why it means something to you. And if it's not gonna have an impact on your life, or it's not gonna make things better for you, it's not gonna do something, then why the hell are you doing it? Why are we doing all of this in the first place? And I think that's the beautiful thing that we saw. No one threw in the towel. Every single person we worked with, that we went through that process with, was like, "Yeah, I'm building on top of what I did." And that is huge for me to see, because it shows a lot of growth and development from a lot of the people that we're working with. It shows that there's a continuation to this, that, okay, I started this thing. Oh, yeah. And even one person said, yeah, I was sitting down with my project manager, and it was like, could you believe we created this thing? And can you believe where we are? And like, the problem we had last year at this time was, what machine we were going to buy, versus this time it's just how many machines are we going to buy. Like, it was, the problems just became different. And it was great to see that his goals were reflecting the new set of problems, and next year's will be a different set of
But that
problems
that
that
client
he's going to be
specifically,
able to
like that,
address.
he's had a meteoric rise to his
Rapid.
success, and it's been,
Yeah.
over 2 years, he went from nothing to like 500,000 to 2 million in 2 years, right? And it's the thing is as you move through those different milestones, you have to embrace, like, I have new problems, I have new responsibilities now, and he has. He's worked with us, and we've helped him to recognize, like, hey, at this point, you now have a different role and responsibility, and you don't have more capacity to do what you used to do and do these other things. And it's either I'm gonna say, okay, this is good, and I'm gonna stay at this level, or if I really want to grow to the potential I know I can, I have to put some things down. I have to believe different things. I have to behave in a different way. And then, yeah, I will become this other thing. But he's been really good about adhering to that, and saying, like, hey, I trust you guys. I know I'm turning a corner here to another phase. I'm gonna, and that's the thing. He trusts the process. But man, he's had so much success, and I wish we could have like a time lapse of that guy, just to show like what's changed. It's just he's a different human being. He runs a completely different business, and he has only scratched the surface. He's one of the few clients that I really believe he could build $1 billion valuation business. Definitely hundreds of millions, and that's the goal. It's a franchise throughout the United States, and he's doing everything necessary to do that because he's willing to say, like, I am entering a new phase. Let's go.
Yep. And he knows why it's gonna make a difference in his life and what impact it's gonna have on his life, and that's why he's chasing
Yeah,
after it,
so many people
because he
just
can see
they
it.
they're so scared to move beyond their current success, and it's when I look at people and I see greatness in them, it's upsetting because I'm like, "Wow, you have so much more in the tank." I understand it's scary to move forward, but man, you have so much potential. And then I see other people and I'm like, "How the hell did you get here? Like, that's incredible that you did
Exactly.
that? You?"
Yeah. Yeah. You.
And
You.
it's
You did good.
just that little bit of fear, that little bit of mindset shift, that little bit of support and presence and risk taking. And it's, man, human beings are capable of so much, and we've been very lucky. We've been very lucky over the last 4 years to really work with some incredible ones, and we've got some new ones that we're bringing on now too, which is awesome. So, all right, pal, we got to run. We got to go to a networking
Absolutely.
meeting.
Yeah, we do, man. All right.
All right, brother.
We'll see you
See
soon.
you.
Be good.